Now we have a topic again, a very important, subluxated cataract, and then doing the surgery of cataract. It is printed in my name, I think by mistake. It was meant for Professor Ruchi Goyal because his cases are hers mostly. And she will show you some methods of like you can handle the subluxated cataract with some kind of rings and nuts and bolts, something to make the safe surgery of the subluxated cataract. Phaco or SICS, both I think she can show.
Good afternoon, everyone. So whenever we are dealing with subluxated cataracts, the most important thing is one should first assess the etiology, whether it is a congenital, that is ectopia lentis, where rest of the zonules are pretty much strong, or it is post-traumatic, where you may have other problems as well, like angle recession, or there may be other trauma-related complications, or it may be a pseudo-exfoliation where you're going to have a progressive subluxation. So every patient is going to be different, and one has to decide using these devices accordingly. Suppose we are dealing with an exfoliation, pseudo-exfoliation, you don't expect that the remaining zonules are going to last in the times to come. So you need something to fix the bag itself. Now, these are the various devices here in this picture, and you can see the commonest device that is being used by all of us is the CTR, that is the capsular tension ring. Then there are devices with eyelets which are tied on to the sclera. It may be a single eyelet or it may be a double eyelet, that is the double Sioni. Recently, now there is another segment called capsular tension segment, which I find it more useful because it is a very small device, goes through a very small port and does not injure the zonules while you insert. So this is one of my favorites. Now, whenever you have a subluxation, say to about 4 clock hours, you can go in for a CTR. Now, CTR can be inserted either before you're doing a phacoemulsification or after you have finished your phacoemulsification. So this is just to show how you put a CTR. I've removed the phaco clip because that is the usual way that we are doing a phacoemulsification. Once the CTR is in place, you just have to push it, ensure that the CTR goes into the bag and it does not fall, one of its parts does not fall into the sulcus. Otherwise, you may end up dislodging the CTR into the vitreous. After that, you do a routine phacoemulsification. In this patient, there was also iridodialysis which was repaired. This is again a patient of trauma with the anterior capsular rupture. Now, mind you, all these devices have to be put into the bag. So I created a rhexis a little away from the area where the anterior capsule was torn. Did a routine, this was, I think, in SICS, a very soft nucleus. So whatever you do, phacoaspiration or SICS, it does not matter. So what is important is that you should have minimum turbulence in the chamber. And now I created a smaller rhexis so that I have an intact rhexis. Now this is a single Sioni which is being placed. So this is a partial thickness scleral flap being raised. And this Sioni, you tie on the eyelet to this straight needle, and this eyelet goes and sits in the sulcus. You push in this Sioni device in, and then after that, remember your rhexis size is small, so don't try to push in a PMMA lens. Go in for a foldable lens. So I have used a foldable IOL, and you insert it directly into the bag. No pushing and pulling and dialing in these kind of cases because your zonules are already compromised. So choice of the surgery is this is how you fix the device. Now this is another patient where you see there is a nearly about 180-degree subluxation. So here there is a risk of the entire bag lens complex falling down. So you can use the iris retractors to hold the bag in place. And then there are some cases where you have extensive subluxation, where I think sir will show you the how you do a secondary IL in these patients. So this is a case with more than 180-degree subluxation. In these patients, there is a chance that while you are performing the surgery, this whole lens may fall into the vitreous. So one has to be extra careful. So what I have done is, I have already pre-marked my areas to fix IL. I'm going to do an ICC. I'm not going to do a SICS per se. So what I do is, I place an infusion cannula so that my lens is pushed upwards. So these are the pre-placed partial thickness scleral flaps which I have created. And you can see the lens is quite unstable and is just ready to fall, one mistake that is done. Now what happens is, before you enter, you must make, I'm using a ab externo technique. So this is the tunnel being dissected. So while you have, your eye has still, it's not hypotenuse once you enter. So you must mark and make these entries. This is a infusion cannula which is placed 3.5 millimeter from the limbus. And this will now push the nucleus up once we open the section. Now, this is a straight needle on 9-O-proline, which is placed 1.5 millimeter from the limbus. And this is inserted nasally. I just pre-place it. This is a 26 gauge needle inserted temporally. Now, before you enter, you place these needles because later on it becomes very difficult to insert these in a hypotenuse eye. After that, you enter with the anterior, with the keratome, and see the hydro pressure, it pushes the nucleus out. So the chance of lens drop or nucleus drop is averted. This is followed by anterior vitrectomy. At this point of time, you can put off the infusion cannula because so much fluid is leaking that it tends to push the vitreous also out. And you put off the infusion cannula. And these are the steps to do scleral fixation. I'll just skip these steps because sir will show it in the secondary IL, and I'll just see if there is anything more in this one. So this is just the IL. I think these steps will be shown by sir. I'll go to the next video. So if you have a case where you have a subluxation along with the lens coloboma, as in this patient we had a case with bilateral subluxation with the lens coloboma. In the first eye, I tried doing a SICS, and I'll show you what problems I faced. So this is a patient where I thought SICS is going to be easier, but what I realized was when you have a lens coloboma, actually the zonules are also missing at that area. So this is a partial thickness scleral flap I created for fixing the Sioni. And once I finished my rexes, I tried doing a hydrodissection, but despite multiple waves, the hydrodissection was not complete, but because what is happening is the capsule is also kind of bean shaped. So there is no place for the nucleus to actually rotate. So I kept pushing and pulling the nucleus so that it would rotate, and finally I ended up doing an intracapsular cataract extraction. So after doing this particular eye, I realized that if I have to take out this nucleus, it has to be in pieces. So in the other eye, I actually did a phacoemulsification and I got away with it. So not all these things, every surgery has to be tailor-made, and one has to decide what particular device has to be used and what technique has to be used. So just to summarize, if it is a superior 4 o'clock hours subluxation, you can go in for a CTR. Inferior up to 3 o'clock hours, you can go for CTR. Inferior subluxations are more dangerous, so one has to be a little careful. Anywhere between 3 and 6, my choice nowadays is a capsular tension segment, which I combine with a CTR. And a CTR is available in an injector form also. A very cheap injector is available by Madhu Instruments, 200 rupees, and it goes right into the bag. And anything between more than 6, less than 9 o'clock hours, CTS with a CTR, and if it is more, then it is better not to waste your time, just go directly for a scleral fixated IOL. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Ruchi, and you have seen that it looks difficult, but again, that expertise and the experience and the method of these rings. So in fact, you can learn to do the CTR rings, and you can even before bringing the nucleus out, when you have done hydro, you have done the rexis, you can insert the rings before nuclear delivery. That is much safer, but you have to see that it remains within the bag, and you can do it after that also. So Dr. Ruchi has to go at 4 o'clock, so we are giving her again the mic for...
Sorry, I have an IC at 4 o'clock. Pranav khada hua tha na, sorry.
Pranav can wait. Pranav is young man. He can wait till night. So we have pre-existing RK. The RKs were done few years back, and they were done in hundreds and thousands. And I have seen blinding of the children by RKs. So she will put IUL in person with RK. FACO or SICS, I don't know that.
डिस्प्ले नहीं आ रहा उधर, स्क्रीन चेंज कर दीजिए. So yeah, thankfully the RK is now no longer practiced, but we still are getting cases, and at least in our generation we would continue to have these cases which have been done earlier. And now the challenge here is the IOL power calculation and the surgical technique both. Now, what is different between the post-LASIK patient and RK patient is that both the front and the back of the cornea are changed by RK incisions, and the typical lens calculation formula will not work, and we tend to get lower IOL powers. And also, post-operatively, there will be a temporary hyperopic shift due to swelling of these corneal incisions.
Yes,
Many of, in fact, surgeons face opening up of these RK incisions during the surgery, and there are leaky wounds. I have recently seen one of the surgeons coming back again and again suturing the RK incisions. So these things are really difficult. What we need to do is that we need to use a device like Pentacam, which is estimating both the anterior and the posterior corneal curvatures to estimate our IOL power. And this is the ASCRS online calculator, where you can feed in all these values, and you get a reasonably correct calculation of IOL power. Suppose you do not have an access to Pentacam, then what you can do is, if you just have the anterior K readings, then you can use a combination of IOL master, your ultrasonic calculations, and you can take an average of all these. But of course, ideal would be to take the posterior float in consideration also. Now, what is another modification which has been suggested is that if there are 4 cuts of RK, then you add 0.5 to 1 diopter. If there are 8 RK cuts, then you add 1 to 1.5 diopters. If 12 cuts and beyond, then you can add at least 2 diopters to your estimated IOL power calculation. Now, this is just a video. You can understand that doing SICS is more or less out in this patient. There are, I think, 24 RK cuts in this patient. Now, my problem is where to place my incision. So instead of going for a clear corneal, I decided to go for a posterior limbal. These incisions have to be banged within the 2 cuts so that I do not open up my incisions. The other problem I faced was that between the 2 cuts, there was no place to even place my chopper. So I had to use a dialer, though this nucleus was hard. So even the MVR blade entry is difficult. Rest, of course, is the method is almost similar to what you do in the routine phacoemulsification. Another thing you have to understand that these patients are going to be high myopes, so their scleral rigidity is going to be low. And instead of going for a stop and chop technique, it is better to go for direct chop in these patients. So this is a posterior limbal incision, and this is the phacoemulsification, and like any other case where you do a direct chop, this is a similar process, nothing different from other cases. Just that you should avoid a lot of turbulence in the chamber, because as I said, these incisions may open even during the surgery. So thankfully, nothing happened in this case. I was very careful not to move my phaco, and once I entered, I tried to finish everything in one go, not to fiddle too much with any of these incisions. Again, the IOL implantation, because some of the IOLs, their cartridges are, you need to enlarge it to 3.2 millimeters. So you have to be careful what IOL you are using so that they go through this incision. You don't need to enlarge them. So these are small tips which you need to plan out beforehand and before you do any of these procedures. The other option is that if you don't want to go in for a phacoemulsification, you can actually go in for a basically ECC, because SICS in this, if I would try and make a tunnel within the RK incisions, I am going to end up opening them. So it is better that you then directly go to an ECC rather than doing an SICS. So I can skip this video, nothing much. The IOL, In the end, if you think that because remember this incision is not corneal, it is almost towards the sclera, it's not purely scleral also. So if required, one must suture this wound, because if you do, your post-surgery, what you usually do is that you hydrate the cornea. Now here, if your incision is far posterior, you may not be able to hydrate it properly and create a watertight seal. So if required, you must put a suture at the end of the surgery. So the take-home message is that the IOL power calculation using, and the K has to be central, so it is better to go for the 2 millimeter and 3 millimeter central K rather than taking a larger diameter. And the recent formula like the Hagesil, Sharma's and Barrett True K are to be used. Another important point is that patients here nowadays, they come with the idea that they all must have, especially a patient who has undergone RK would not like to wear glasses. So first thing they'll ask is, can I go for a multifocal IOL? So that is an absolute no. No more multifocal IOLs for these patients. As it is, you're not too sure because you may have post-operative cylinders. Still, people have started using toric IOLs in RK patients also. But then again, you have to counsel the patient that there may be a surprise. You can never be very sure about the post-operative refractive error that you may get. Counsel the patient that there may be a hyperopic shift in the post-operative period due to swelling of the incisions. Thank you so much. And this is my book that will be released today in the award ceremony. This is my 20 years of hard work which I put in oculoplasty. मेरा screen क्यों हटा दिया? Screen क्यों बंद कर दिया आपने? Screen कर दो. चल, thank you.
Dr. Ruchi, congratulations for this book.
She will take rest and leave. One more you have? No?
So on Dr. Ruchi's presentation, I would just add one or two small points of practical interest. That whenever we do an IOL power calculation in a case of pre-LASIK on RK, most of us don't have the fancy gadgets. Of course, if you have them, Sharma's is a very good option and the other softwares. But if you don't have it, and you just have a routine biometer, an ultrasonic biometer, then a kind of a rule of the thumb is that in RK, like she said, add about 1.5 to 2 of your biometric power. And in LASIK, add about 3 to your biometric power. This is where you should be naturally. But when you do your IOL calculations with all these software, sometimes they give you a totally different reading. And there you have to use your common sense that, nay, this reading should be somewhere like add 1.5 or add 3. So if this is the reading I'm getting like lower than the actual biometric power or very high, then there is something wrong in your calculation. So you have a mental picture and your final Sharma's or Barrett's should give you a picture which is close to what you expect and then follow those formulas. Thank you.
And now again a very important topic, the